Hey everyone, good to be back with you today. This is Professor Hank, and today we're going to be talking about one of the most useful tools in Python, the for loop. We're going to take a look at how it works. We'll see how to use it with lists, strings, and ranges, and we'll even see some real-world examples of for loops. So let's go ahead and get started. So what a for loop allows us to do is to repeat a block of code for every item that exists within a collection, such as a list, a string, or a range of numbers. So let's see an example. So we're going to use this keyword for, and then we're going to have this target variable that we can name whatever we like. So I'll just call it num. And then we're going to use the keyword in, and then here we're going to have our collection. And I'll just put in a list here, and I'll do 1, 2, and 3. And then I'll go ahead and print out the number. So the way this is going to work, we'll go ahead and run it. You'll see that we've got 1, 2, and 3. So the way this works is that for each item in the collection, that item gets copied to the target variable. So for the first repetition, the 1 got copied into num, and then we printed it. For the next repetition, the 2 got copied into num, and then we printed it. And then for the third repetition, the 3 got copied into num, and then we printed it. So in Python, for loops are often used to iterate, to do iterations. And that just means, go through each item. So now let's see how we can loop through strings and lists. So if I create a string and I want to go through and access each individual letter in that string, then I can do something like this. I'm going to have that keyword for again. I'm going to have my target variable, which I'm going to call letter in this case. I'm going to say in, and then I've got a string literal here. And then I'll just print out the letter. So if I run that, you're going to see that we've got our HELLO. Totally fine. Not a problem. So that's an example of doing it with a string. Now, how about a list? So let's create a list of names, and I'll have one name be Anna, I'll have another Bruno, and then I'll have another Carlos. And then I'll construct my for loop. So keyword for, target variable named name, keyword in, and then I'll use the identifier for my list, names. And so for each one of the names, for each member of my list, they're going to get copied into the target variable, and then I'll just print them out. And I'll say something like, hi, and then I'll do name. So now when I run this, you're going to see, hi Anna, hi Bruno, hi Carlos. So you can loop through the string character by character or list item by item. This is great for processing data, displaying messages, or performing calculations. Now, if we want to loop a specific number of times, then we can use Python's built-in range function. So let's see an example of that and talk about how that works. So I'm going to do my for keyword again, and I'll just name my target variable this time I. Then I'll use in, and then I'll make a call to this range function, and I'll put inside these parentheses here how many times I want it to iterate. So we'll do that, and then in my block here, I'll just print out like loop, and then the contents of my target variable. Now, when I run this, we're going to get 5 total values, and those values are going to be the numbers 0 through 4. So you'll see there's our 0, our 1, our 2, R3 and R4. So the range function starts at 0 and goes up to, but doesn't include that argument value that we put inside of the parentheses. Now we can also control where it starts. So let's see an example of that. So if I do for I in range, and I put a couple of values in here, say 1, 6. So what this is going to do, I'll go ahead and just print out the I. This is simply going to print 1 to 5, because now we're saying start at 1 and go up to, but don't include 6. And it's integers, it's whole numbers. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we'll see that. And there's your 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So let's look at looping with index and value. And we're going to use the enumerate function to do that. So let's say that I create a list of colors, and I've got red, and I've got green, and I've got blue. So if I have those, then I can construct my for loop. So I'll do for, and I'll have 2 target variables this time. We'll call one index, and I'll call the other color. and then I'm going to use my keyword in, and then I'm going to call this function enumerate. And inside the parentheses, I'm going to put the identifier for my list. So that's colors. And then I'll print index, and then I'll make a little arrow here, and then the color. And then we'll take a look at the output for that, and then we'll break it down. Right, so you can see we've got 0 arrow red, we've got 1 arrow green, we've got 2 arrow blue. So what enumerate does is it gives us both the index and the value. So this is perfect for when you need to track positions in a list. So let's see an example of a very common use case, and that would be to sum numbers. So if I needed to find the total of a list of numbers, so we'll create our list, have identifier numbers for it, and let's say we put in there 5, 10, and 15. And I want to find the total of all those numbers in there. So I can do something like this. I'll create my accumulator variable, total set to 0, and then I'll say for that keyword again, my target variable num, keyword in, and then the identifier for the list, and then I will add to the total num. Now what this is going to do, the for loop is going to iterate over the entire list. 5 will get copied into num, and then that contents of num will be added to total. Then 10 will be copied to num. Num will be added to total. 15 will be copied to num. Num will be added to total. And then our total will contain the total of all those numbers, right? So then we can print that out. So print total, and we'll do total. So if we run that, we're going to see the total is going to be 30. So there is that total, right? So we can see that right there. So this is another way of calculating a running total, and the pattern comes up a lot: math problems, data analysis, and others. So let's take a look at another example here. So let's say that we had a list of scores, and maybe these came from user input, say, or wherever, and we wanted to print for each score whether it was a passing score or a failing score. I use my for loop here. So I'll say for, I'll have my target variable, I'll call it score. Remember, you can always name your target variables whatever you like. And for score and scores, now I'll say, well, if the score is greater than or equal to, say, 60. If that's the case, we'll print that that score is a passing score. Otherwise, we will print that score is a failing score. Now, if I run this, here's what's going to happen. The 72 will get copied into score. 72 is greater than or equal to 60. That's true. So then we'll print out 72 is a passing score. The else will get skipped. We'll start the next iteration of the loop. 58 will be copied into score. 58 is not greater than or equal to 60. So this will evaluate to false. We'll kick down to the else. We'll print out 58 as a failing score, go to the top of the loop, and so on. So let's run that and see that play out. So we've got 52 is passing, 58 is failing, 91 is passing, and 60 is also passing. Now 60 is passing because 60 is greater than or equal to 60. So we're going to get that, and it's not going to be a problem. Now you can see that for loops are clean and a very readable way to handle lists such as this. So let's talk about some best practices for loops. You're going to want to use clear variable names such as item, name, or score. Make sure that you avoid modifying the list that you're looping through. Keep the loops readable, and you can also use comments to add some clarity to it. You want to prefer for loops over while loops when you know how many times you're going to be looping. While loops are better when you don't know ahead of time. For loops are better when you have a set number of repetitions that you need to have, that you know you're going to need. So what not to do. Don't change your lists while looping. We just talked about that in the best practices. So for example, don't do something like this. If we have names equals Anna, Bob, Eve, and we've got our for loop here for name in names, and then we have an if statement. If name equals Bob. Don't do this. Names dot remove name. Okay, this is not safe. This is not safe behavior. When you're modifying a list, or if you modify a list while looping over it, it can lead to unexpected behavior. You can't predict exactly what's going to happen. So if you need to remove items, then what you want to do is you want to loop over a copy of the list, and then you can do your remove from the original. Okay, so an example of that would look something like this. So for name in names, that'll make a copy of it, and then you can do your remove safely that way. And that is your introduction for loops in Python. You've seen how to loop through lists, strings, ranges, and even how to use enumerate. As always, if you're a student of mine, you have questions about the content of this video or any of the videos in our courses, feel free to stop by our Zoom office hours or email me via Canvas. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.